This is Glenn Hughes, the voice of rock, and you're listening to Music Mania.
You ready for some screaming heavy metal? We rock!
But the evil that men do, then God,
We gonna bang your head!
You are now listening to the Music Mania podcast, brought to you by CD Warehouse in Gladstone, the #1 hard rock podcast in the Midwest, featuring hard-hitting interviews with rock's living legends. And now, here's your host, Clint Switzer.
Well, it is the first Music Mania podcast episode for the month of March here in 2018. I'm your host, Clint Switzer. We have a very special show today as we are going to be talking with Patrick Stone. He is the frontman and guitarist for the band Budderside, a band I caught opening for LA Guns a few weeks ago down in Tampa, Florida. And, through the power of social media, I was able to make a connection, got this interview set up, and here we go. We're going to be talking with Patrick Stone, who once was a singer for Adler's Appetite. He has been the roadie for Lemmy. Budderside, one of the first bands signed to Lemmy's Motorhead Music Records. They had their debut album come out in 2016, self-titled. It is very, very good. Rarely do I kind of have a connection with a band that I see, especially opening kind of in a club setting. It's hard to make a connection sometimes with some of these bands, some of these opening bands. Even though they're good, you're maybe not quite paying attention yet, just kind of ready for the headliner. And in this case, I was totally dialed in to Budderside. And Patrick Stone, what a great frontman, great guitarist. He has a lot of energy. I mean, Budderside is true, hard, modern, high-energy rock and roll with wings to other musical arenas. A sound where genuine raw power meets hypnotic harmonies, resulting in one of the most engaging, entertaining bands in the land. That is Budderside. Cannot wait for their second album, which Patrick says they are writing right now. While they're on tour with LA Guns, they just got done playing the Monsters of Rock cruise. They've been on tour with LA Guns since last summer, 9 months on the road with LA Guns. I'm sure learning a lot, hitting the road with a band of the caliber of LA Guns has to be a huge learning experience for Budderside. And here in just a moment, we are going to be catching up with Patrick Stone, the lead singer. But before we do that, I've got to tell you about our sponsor, CD Warehouse. For over 20 years, a staple of the Northland here in Kansas City. CD Warehouse, CDs, DVDs, vinyl, and more. It's where I bought 95% of the music I still own today. And welcome to the show, Patrick. Welcome to Music Mania. We're so glad to have you. This all started because of this beautiful thing called a live rock and roll experience where I caught you guys opening for LA Guns in Tampa just a few weeks ago, man. What a great show that was.
Yeah, it was so fun, man. It's always good when the house is full and we got people like you in the front row just anticipating something new, something fresh, and they're hopeful, but, people are pretty doubtful that they're going to get a great show, and when we deliver, it feels really good.
Well, I was in the front row, but I was not the guy that Phil Lewis wound up stealing the cell phone from later on in the set. Thank goodness that was not me.
Well, don't worry. That happens at least once or twice a show.
Dude, well, you talked about to try to throw a shirt on. I was there with my girlfriend, okay, and she since the show, she's kind of had some thoughts about you. She's like, you know what, that guy reminds me of someone. He's very good looking, which so it's already over right there for me, I guess. But we decided that it's Robin Zander from Cheap Trick. That's who you resemble. Have you ever heard that one before?
Yeah, I think maybe once, maybe I've heard that, but anytime I'm ever compared to somebody as legendary as that, what a compliment.
Well,
thank you very much.
No, absolutely, and it was a great show, and I was blown away, which is kind of rare for me. I go to a lot of shows, I see a lot of bands, but to have a band like that just kind of really opened my eyes to want to check them out and to get into this further, and that through the power of social media, here we are, my friend. And if my geography is good, which it's not, I think you should be somewhere in the Carolinas right now tonight. Is that correct?
I am. I'm standing out here in the middle of BFD. I'm staring at the Tar Heel marquee. We're out here in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and there's a few cars on the road, but other than that, you can see as far as the eye can see, and there's some trees, and looks like farmland.
Well,
it's interesting to go from one extreme to the next. We were in the Bahamas last week, and now we're out here in Tar Heel country.
That's right, man. You guys were on the Monsters of Rock cruise. What was that like?
Oh man, it was a dream come true. It really was. You just got all these people that you looked up to your whole lives playing music, and you just walk from one room to the next and just relive your childhood, and then you have to pinch yourself because you turn every corner and there's somebody you've always looked up to, and they're telling you how they just saw we had our video on rotation in the cabins, and so word got around pretty quick that we were there and who we were, and people were just it was just nonstop positive recognition for who we are and what we were doing, and the shows turned out to be just a lot better than we had anticipated. We couldn't have asked for a better situation. We've been invited to come back next year. We can't wait to play the bigger stages, but yeah, what a dream come true. I mean, it's paradise. It literally is. It's paradise. And then they say, okay, now play music in paradise, and you're like, what?
And no one went overboard, I assume. So that's a good thing, a victory right there. No, you didn't lose anybody.
No, well, no one we're going to tell you about anyway.
I tell you what, Patrick, I'm a fan for the last 2 weeks since I saw you guys, and I've looked into what you guys have done, and I'm a huge fan of the first album, which I believe came out in 2016, the self-titled album Budderside. I'm a huge fan of it. You talked about the videos being on full rotation. I was blown away at the production of the videos, like for Genocide and Pain. Just unbelievable quality. I mean, this talk about just making those videos and how important it was for you guys to reach the pinnacle of excellence production-wise, because it really stands out.
Yeah, well, that's the whole idea, man. I don't know, my father ingrained it into my brain when I was a kid that, if you're going to get something, get the best. If you're going to do something, do it great. Don't hold back, and don't worry about what the consequences or costs are. Once you get there, you're going to feel a lot better about it if you give it everything you have. So, there's so many bands coming out, and some of them are really worth a lot more than they're given credit for, because they have a lot of talent and they write great songs, but then they settle on certain things. The video comes out and it looks like somebody shot it in the closet with an iPhone, and you just lose interest. So I really wanted to make some great videos, and then it's kind of serendipity that I met the guys that I did. Actually, this guy Eric Bishop does our videos, or two of them, and he was just at the right place at the right time with me, and vice versa with us, and he just agreed to do the things, on a really tight budget that we had. We spared no expense, but it was still a tight budget. But yeah, he had the know-how, and he had the right cameras, and he had a whole crew, and it was both times it was a very professional situation. We shot the open relationship thing on a green screen, and at that time he was going through his CGI phase where he wanted to do the best of the best, making those kinds of videos. So he just dove in and did the best job he could, and I think that one turned out really great. And we used a big crane for the Pain video, and the boxing ring, and all the girls. It was just everything just seems to be coming together. And that's kind of what I've always believed, that if you put your heart and soul 100% into something, honestly, sit there in your bed at night and ask yourself, why am I here? And the answer is usually, at least I would say, for me it was very obvious, and I've always wanted to do this. So it's like the more energy I put into it, the more energy comes back to it, and the people that I find along the way that are willing to help, or it just the ladder we just keep climbing up that ladder, and the results are, it's a dream come true. It really is.
That's wonderful, and I'm a huge fan of stories like your band Budderside, and just the way music connects people, and the way it drew me in. And I know a huge crowd there at the Brass Mug in Tampa that night too. And you've been on this tour with LA Guns since I think last summer. You guys basically live together now. What's that experience been like, just traveling the country with these guys?
Yeah, we're so blessed. We were all a little bit nervous coming into it. Tracy and Phil reuniting, it means a lot to them that this tour goes well, and they're hoping that it goes well, just like we are. And we just all of us, we just bring it every night. We give it everything we have. We leave it all on the stage. Every pore is just brimming with sweat, and I think there's a mutual respect that we've grown to have for one another. They are really cool, genuine guys, and going into it, touring with a band you're opening for, you're always afraid that they're going to be, these conceited egotists and stuff like that, which I like to think none of us are. and we deserve a good shot at something great, and I think they do too. They're really great human beings who just have nothing but love and admiration for them, and it seems like we're really helping each other out. I mean, we get up there on stage, and we get that crowd running, so by the time they hit the stage, they are ready for LA Guns, you know? They don't have to sit back and say, oh yeah, this is what it was. No, it's just like, you're right there, you're ready. We just lit it up. We sparked it for you, and here you go. Blow it up.
That is exactly how it felt. How it felt for me, and I want you to try to describe the band's sound, because as I'm trying to do in the intro and the exit of the podcast, I'm talking about something that's almost indescribable. What Budderside sounds like, because it's very high energy, it's very melodic, but there's so many elements in there. You've got elements of thrash and like very heavy melodic stuff. Just kind of talk about the band's sound, how you found it, and kind of what you expect from it.
It's we're just products of our upbringings, really. You know, so many heroes to pick from, and I am so grateful that I had the ones I did, and that my generation had. But growing up, I wasn't one of these guys that kind of stuck to any kind of clique or a certain crowd. I would bounce back and forth from the emo kids who were listening to the Cult, and I loved Billy Idol, and Peter, Paul and Mary, and AC/DC, and just all of these influences were coming in from so many different directions, and I loved all of it, and nobody really was around me to tell me that it wasn't cool not to like all of it, I mean, Rod Stewart, Michael Jackson, and Prince, and all these things are around you. It's like, I love the fact that Metallica is so heavy, but it's like I love the fact that Prince is so sexy, and his stuff is so beautiful. So it's like, why make a song that, I don't know. It actually, to tell you the truth, it really isn't done on purpose. You're going through something in life. You can't really get the words out. You can't explain to the people you're going through it with words or conversation. And you just, I would huddle myself in a corner with my guitar and my recording equipment, and I would just go for sometimes days on end, weeks on end, until I felt like I fully processed the emotion that was inside of me that had to get out. And then you look back at it, and yeah, it's obscure. Like, 1 minute I'm feeling really bad about something, and then you have this aggressive guitar, and then you have to back out and go, geez, is it my fault? Maybe it's my fault, and I'm sorry. And, that leads to a sweet chord on a 12-string acoustic. And it's like, don't try to force, I don't know, we just didn't want to stick to any genre. We didn't care. And, Lemmy really loved that. He was, he'd get in my car when we'd drive him around, and he would bounce from one, radio station to the next, and we'd be listening to Aretha Franklin, and then Muse, and then the Ramones, and he wouldn't stop turning the dial until he found something he liked, and it didn't matter, what the sounds were, it didn't matter what genre it was. It's just he would only stop when the song was pure and true to its message, and that's what I think we have, and that's where we related, and that's why he wanted to give it the chance that it's being given. So yeah, I'm at first it felt like a curse. Everybody was like, what genre are you? Like, who are we going to put you on tour with? Like, all of these questions that these business guys have to ask you, and it's like, I don't know, you figure that out. I'm just playing music, man.
You can, and I think that's important. And I think that during the live show, you talked about being a roadie for Lemmy, about being signed to, Motorhead Music, the Lemmy's record label. Just kind of talk about how that relationship formed. And I think during the show, you said something to the effect of, Lemmy liked the fact that we don't really fit into one genre. And then also kind of give us a glimpse into the future and what you think maybe the next album is going to be like and when that might occur, which I don't know when it would, because you guys are touring all the time. So it's finding that balance, right?
Yeah, well, it's all coming together, and yeah, Lemmy suffered from the same problem. They wanted to call him heavy metal, and they wanted to call him this and that and whatever. But when it came down to the end of actually the opening of the show and the closing, he would always just say, "We are Motorhead, and we are rock and roll." It's all rock and roll. None of us are really reinventing the wheel. We just have different voices and different equipment, and maybe some of us talk about different subjects, but yeah, the friendship formed surrounding very dark times in my life, and to Lemmy, he was so strong and powerful that I think he shined through all of the darkness that surrounded him all the time. He was able to cope with, the world around him was completely chaotic, but he was the ringleader. He was the general. He was he was in charge of all of that, and it worked. You know, there was a method to the madness and everything else. But we met during that time, and you know, we were dabbling a lot in the same, dancing with a lot of the same demons, and we enjoyed that together. And we built a mutual friendship, kind of based around that, and you know, inside of this den of thieves, there are certain people that come along that you can trust and you really love and you really like, and those people become part of the inner circle. At least that's what it felt like with Motorhead. There's you know, they were very strong, just like the logo represents, very intimidating. But you know, I walked into his life just, you know, what you see is what you get, and you know, I wasn't out to get anything from him, and he just really warmed up to me. And before I know it, I was, you know, hanging out, and we were writing songs together, and you know, I was helping him with his collection of World War II memorabilia. I was really good with jewelry, and I would polish up his stuff and bring it back, you know, in better condition than it came to me in, and he really respected that and liked that, because I'm sure he gave it to, you know, a bunch of other drug addicts or whatever that came along promising him whatever, and they probably disappeared with that stuff, and then he never saw those people again. By chance, I was sitting there when a phone call came in from Phil. Phil was at my house, Phil Campbell, and his roadie from Europe couldn't get over some problem with his passport, so they needed a tech all of a sudden for the U.S. run of the Everything Louder Than Everything Else tour. And I just happened to overhear the conversation, and when Phil hung up, he was like, "Damn it, I don't have a roadie." I was like, "Yeah, you do."
Oh, yeah.
So there it was. I mean, literally within, I think, 2 or 3 days, we were out on the road, and I was tuning their guitars. And but you know, Lemmy always pulled me aside and told me I shouldn't be on in the back. You know, I should be in the front of the stage. And yeah, Lemmy was always writing, and that was always you know, something I was soaking in. I was like, you know, everybody else is running around partying and having fun and being crazy, but he was always in that back room, pencil and paper in hand, and you know, being part of the whole Motorhead music family. I think we have an obligation to fulfill, which leads me to the second part of your question, and that is the new record. Mm-hmm. Constantly trying to write. Always writing in my head, but yeah, we've got a whole bunch of new material, a lot of it heavier than the last record. I'd never tried to detune my guitar before, and now we're detuning some in some of the other songs, which makes it you know, a lot heavier. So in that sense, a little bit cooler. But we're hoping to get into the studio. We're probably going to announce a pretty big time producer that is excited to record with us, but haven't quite signed on the dotted line yet. But we are slated to go in to record the new record probably mid-April, early May, and hopefully it'll be done by June, July. It'll be released by the time we do the Vaughan Festival in the fall.
That is awesome. I hope we can continue to stay in contact, especially when that comes out, whenever that may be, and continue some dialogue on this, because, you know, and I think that's what's missing from music today. I think people are so disconnected from music, but from rock in general. As growing up and, you know, hearing you talk about some of your influences, it just means a lot to me, because that's kind of how I am. I'm just, you know, baptized in this blood of all things of rock and roll and of all things, and to form a connection with a band these days, it takes a lot for me. I go to a lot of shows, but it's hard to find one that truly makes me want to go listen to them. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of what happened with you guys, and that's got to be a great thing for you, because I'm sure that happens at every show. You always say, "Hey, hit us up on Facebook. We'll be glad to interact." And I think that's just so key today, and that's a good thing for social media to be able to do that. I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, we're all one big community. We're with you, you know. Before it was like your stars and your heroes it seemed like they were untouchable, you know, and it's a different chemistry today to make it all work. You know, you've got to really be, you know, I don't know, it's funny, you look back at all the big heroes and stuff, and the ones that have the big egos, or they were assholes and they didn't want to talk to anybody, they seem to be suffering a little bit at this point, and they've disconnected from their groups, and now they're doing solo projects, and things just aren't working as well as you think they could have if they just stuck together. I mean, Guns N' Roses is the perfect example. I mean, I have nothing but huge admiration for Steven Adler and everybody in that group. They're one of my favorite bands, but I just can't help but think how far they could have come and how big they could have been if they just set the egos aside and kept going together. And you look at, like, you know, Phil and Tracy from LA Guns, they're getting back together, and this, you know, we've been out with them for 9 months, and every show just gets better and better, and I feel like people are, you know, I really see it going somewhere for them, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to have my guys, and I'm so grateful for, you know, some people feel like, oh, the music industry, and it's so different than it used to be, and I mean, it is different, but, you know, you can reach so many more people with the click of a button than you could, you know, with a million mailings or whatever you did before. You know, you can really reach people, and it's cool to know your fans and talk to them. It seems like they really, you know, they like to engage, so it's super cool.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm glad you mentioned Steven Adler, of course. You know, before we let you go, we got to mention the fact that, of course, you were, you sang in Adler's Appetite, and you got to, you know, be around Steven a lot. And of course, you got to participate, you know, on a limited basis in this Guns N' Roses reunion, but just kind of, you know, talk about what it was like working with in Adler's Appetite. A lot of great players came through that group. A lot of great things came from it, and I'm sure it was a good experience for you.
Yeah, it was the ultimate. Again, it was surreal. Another surreal experience. Chasing this dream has turned out to, you know, I look back sometimes and I go, what? Because when I was a kid, it was just like, you look at it and you have no idea what you're going to accomplish, and everybody tells you that, you know, you're crazy. But yeah, I mean, that happened. So, I mean, you know, I wasn't literally pinching myself while I was on stage, but sometimes I look back on a photograph and I go, man, the guy behind me was like, you know, one of my favorite people of all time, like my biggest heroes, Guns N' Roses, and that whole attitude and that whole, you know, just movement. It was a huge movement, and it continues today. Still, the most successful tour of the last couple of years has been those guys.
Yep.
But yeah, working with Steven Adler and Michael Thomas, too, phenomenal guitar player. Chip Z'Nuff, one of my favorite people on the planet, just an exceptional musician. Really, you know, deserves a lot more credit than he gets, I think. I mean, he's just so talented. You know, and Steven, of course, is just, I mean, he's just like a, I don't know, I don't want to say a puppy dog, but he's just such a lovable human being. And, you know, I'm so glad that I could be a part of that. It really made me mature as a musician, as a human being, and gave me a lot of insight to the business and what it really takes to make it. You know, when you're out there traveling with somebody that's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, you know, you start to carry yourself like you're, you know, you're worth a lot more to yourself in this profession than you were before that. So It's given me a lot of, you know, mental muscle for myself to kind of, you know, set my sights on, you know, things that, if I could do this with him, then why can't I do things that he did that were as big? So, you know, as soon as, you know, everybody, whenever somebody else is flying their ship, you know, they like to change directions and do things that's best for them. So I'm grateful even for the fact that I got the opportunity to really set my sights on Budderside, because, you know, 2 years traveling around with Steven, singing those Guns N' Roses songs was everything a musician could ever ask for. But as a songwriter, you know, it's like, okay, I can do this. So
certainly,
yeah,
that's all. That's great, and that's why I think there's, you know, so many positive things and so many great things to come for Budderside, and we can't wait to see where this thing goes. And I want to leave you with this. I want to leave you with a quote from your website, and I want you to just kind of tell me what it means to you, because this really struck me. On your website, it says, "We've survived hell to live a life to die for, and we're just getting started." What does that mean to you?
Oh, well, we've, you know, there's just, my life was very dark. Our lives were very dark. All of the guys in the band, we've known each other our whole lives, and we just, you know, like I said, all of those dark times with Lemmy and everything else, they were beautiful, wonderful, you know, we are partying on top of the world, you know, days upon weeks upon months upon years upon end. But it literally, when you look back, it was just, for me, it was a lot of trying to escape from the realities that, like, I couldn't make sense of what to do to make it all happen. All of the dreams that I had, I would just get high and I would just destroy myself. So, you know, I spent about a good long time as an intravenous drug user. You know, I was on the streets, heroin and meth and every drug you could imagine. I was just trying to do as much of it as I could. Like Jim Morrison before me, I wanted to be like my heroes. Guns N' Roses, I wanted to be like those guys because, in order to be a badass, you just had to go through that. But, the whole time I was writing songs, but along the way, you really lose sight of what is important, and that is your health, your state of mind. So when I say that we've lived a life, in hell, literally did. And, I've been sober now for 12 years. And when I made that decision, that's when Lemmy and everybody from Motorhead got behind me, including Singerman Entertainment. And it's because of that choice to, let's put down the junk and let's take everything we've learned and let's do this. And, it's only been about 2.5 years, I think, since those guys got behind us. So we're just getting started. In 2.5 years, we've been on the road we toured all of Europe. We've been on the road with LA Guns for 9 months. We've got a debut record out, three videos that are awesome. Probably releasing one more on that record before we release the next record. So yeah, we are just getting started. I'm just starting to get the phone calls from the right people, and they're starting to get really excited. So yeah, we've been through hell and back, and we're bringing that to the stage, and you can feel the angst, you can feel the pain, you can relate to the stories, and you can walk away feeling like, wow, somebody's been there and done that, and it's okay, it's all right, and it's still okay to celebrate life.
It is,
and let's do it together.
That's so great, and I'm just so glad you came out on the other end unscathed, or if scathed to a point where it drove you creatively, hopefully into the stratosphere, man, into the future. Because what Budderside has going is endless possibilities. And Patrick, we can't thank you enough for taking time out. I know you guys just had a sound check. You guys got a show tonight in Jacksonville, South Carolina. Please be in touch, man. We can't thank you enough, and we'll, here's to health and happiness, and we'll hopefully get you. We're here in the Midwest. Got to get you guys to Kansas City at some point, man. That'd be a great thing. We got to get you guys out here sometime.
Hell yeah, let's put it on the list. I can't thank you enough, brother, for having us. It's all about you guys and taking the time to be interested in something new and not. You're breaking us out of the box, and we really appreciate it.
Hell yeah, man. Have a great show tonight, and we'll be in touch, my friend. Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks. Well, that's Patrick Stone from the band Budderside. I've become a fan. It was just a few weeks ago that I was able to see them. I've become a fan. I've checked out all their stuff. Be sure to check them out on Facebook at Budderside. They love the interaction. Instagram, YouTube. Become a subscriber. Engage in these type of bands, guys. We have to do it. It is our oath as true rock and roll defenders. Keep engaged in these kind of bands, guys, because they are the future. And you just think about Budderside's story, one of dreams, dedication, survival, struggle, and eventual success makes them a people's band through and through. That's what it's all about in today's market, in today's music industry, which has changed a lot over the years. We talked to Patrick about that. We want to thank everyone who continues to check out our show, the Music Mania Podcast, and our website, musicmaniapodcast.com. Of course, subscribe on YouTube and iTunes. We always appreciate that. Leave us a comment. Tweet us at musicmania_show. We always love the interaction. If you have a guest that you would like to hear us get a hold of, an interview, we would be glad to take that under consideration, guys. We have a loaded spring and summer season coming up. Expect a lot of big interviews. I know for a fact we're going to be talking with members of Def Leppard, of Poison, as these tours get off and running. Definitely Styx and REO Speedwagon as well, as they get set to tour together. Guys, it's going to be a busy season here on the Music Mania Podcast, and we hope you're dialed in for every second right here.